Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Unlock the Middle, a show where we recognize middle marvels every Tuesday nights. I'm your co-host, Dean Packard. Alongside of me, I have my good friend and colleague, Principal Chris Starcheski of Dudley Middle School in Dudley, Massachusetts. Chris, how are you tonight, my friend? We know Tuesday nights are a night to celebrate great teaching and great teaching methods within the middle level. How are you, my friend?
Hey, thanks for asking, Dean. Tuesday nights are great. I'm doing really well tonight. We've got a great day ahead tomorrow in celebrating our great nation's veterans. Veterans Day. It's so much more than a day off from school. It's an opportunity to sit down and reflect and say thanks to everyone who's out there who's serving this great country.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because this is the first time since, obviously COVID-19 taken over, that we're not going to have a celebration in our school and an opportunity to really teach kids what Veterans Day is all about. So I'm glad you took that moment to pop that in there, Chris. And if you're listening out there, please take that moment to recognize the freedoms and the life that we can live for the people who sacrificed their lives. So yeah, you're spot on, Chris. Tonight, however, we're going to enter the great state of Texas, and we're going to bring on another rock star, and we're going to dig deeply into her career, and we're going to talk about some great things from a middle level perspective.
Well, hey, let's go ahead and bring her on in, Dean.
And all right, I'll take care of that. Why don't you take care of the introduction, and we'll bring her in.
You got it. Well, hey, everybody out there in Unlock the Middle Land, we've got Middle Marvel, Dr. Debbie Silver, who's joining us tonight. She's the former Louisiana Teacher of the Year. She's a best-selling author, and she's a highly acclaimed national and international speaker. She's a popular keynoter who's presented in 49 states in Europe, Australia, Asia, Africa, Canada, Mexico, and the Middle East. I hear that she's off to Antarctica next. It's going to be an amazing journey for her. Dr. Silver has taught 21 years in the classroom and 9 years at Louisiana Tech University. She's worked as a staff development designer and is a veteran professional development specialist. Debbie's best-selling books include Drumming to the Beat of Different Marchers, Fall Down 7 Times, Get Up 8, I love it, Little Muhammad Ali, Deliberate Optimism, Reclaiming the Joy in Education, and her recently released Teaching Kids to Thrive. She's a multiple award-winning educator who's taught most every grade level and every kind of student along the way. Dr. Silver's high-energy sessions address both the art and heart of teaching. Her extensive research background gives her keen insights into educational theory and practice, while her trademark humor and candor help her connect with all those involved in education. Audiences delight in hearing this 30-year veteran teacher whose presentations are described as where learning collides with laughter. Dr. Debbie Silver, how are you tonight?
Great, guys. Thanks for having me. This is great. And here I am from the great state of Texas, but also representing Louisiana, where I taught for 30 years.
So Middle Marvel.
Well, you are definitely not a lone star as a Middle Marvel, but you are our first Lone Star Middle Marvel.
All right.
Hey, I got to dig into some of those books, Chris, and I'm going to have to find out where I can pick some up later on. But Debbie,
absolutely.
Again, welcome to our show, and again, looking at your pedigree and what you've done and what you've accomplished throughout your career, and it's a storied career. There's no doubt about it. And we love when we have an opportunity to speak to someone like you, who has given so much to the field of education, so much to their schools, their students, their staffs. I'm just excited. So why don't you start us off and tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started in education, and a little bit about that path.
All right. Well, mine is kind of a serendipitous kind of thing. It was not something I planned. I had a totally different plan involved, but life happens. And I got kidnapped in my first marriage. And so if you hear me call myself Mrs. Pace, that's I had a starter marriage that lasted 17 years. And we divorced over incompatibility. I'm an Aries. He's a dumbass. But anyway, I've been married to Lawrence now for many years. So if I say Miss Pace, Miss Silver, Dr. Silver, it's all right. You guys just call me Your Highness, okay? Right. But the thing is, there were signs that I wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't see those. I had another plan. And in my first marriage, I ended up in a tiny little town in Logansport, Louisiana. Hey, Logansport, population 1,200, and they were in dire need of teachers. Now, I was 20 years old at the time. I did not have a degree. I had 2 years of college, no hours in education, but they, because of poverty and a lot of other things going on at the time, they were desperate. And they said, would you come be a temporary substitute? And idiot that I am, I'm thinking, well, I used to babysit and I was pretty good. So how hard could it be? And I show up on day one, no training, no books, no anything, just show up. And we didn't have air conditioning. It was like 100 degrees. I was in the Army Barracks little outcast building on the playground. And they had hired me as a 4th grade teacher. And these kids came in and they were so short. And I said, what grade are you in? And they said, 1st. I said, oh, no. See, I'm the 4th grade teacher. And then they all just started crying. And so it turns out I am the 1st grade teacher, and that was my job. And by the end of day one, I figured out, oh, you know what? This is what I was meant to do. And I don't know what I'm doing. In fact, I told the kids, I said, all right, well, I may not be here tomorrow because I'm going to quit. And they were all crying. And I said, no, guys, I don't know how to teach. And they looked at me and they said, we'll show you. Truer words were never spoken. I mean, I basically learned from kids because I had no courses in education at the time. I'm not recommending that, by the way. But it was such a journey, and I just fell in love. And then I progressed through the grades and very quickly ended up in middle school, which I realized these are my people. I love the little hormones with the feet. I love you. I hate you. I love you. I hate you. I just, first time I taught middle, I just went, oh my God, this is great. And they laughed at my jokes. And I just embraced that. I became a science teacher because that was back before we did a lot of hands-on and any other subjects. And I just am a little bit, I don't have ADD, but I have ADDOS, attention deficit, sparkly, just I get really distracted. But it was just so much fun. And because that was not my strength area, I'm really a language arts person, but because I was learning along with the kids, I really do think that made me a better teacher. And I love the science because we could do science, science is a verb. And it just got bigger and better and bigger and better. And I taught 17 years in that first school where I started out. And then I didn't move, but I stayed in Logansport, but I taught in the Shreveport area for 4 years. And then got teacher of the year and, some other things. And I, don't be too impressed by that because there were just 2 people that were eligible that year. And the other one died mysteriously. But, I really wanted to win. And I did. But the thing was, I had an opportunity to go be a liaison between science teachers and the university. We had a grant from the government. It was called the LACIT program, and I got involved in that. And it was supposed to be a 1-year appointment. But I just, as much as I love the classroom, I loved working with teachers in their classrooms. And I always describe myself as a science fairy. I said, I'm going to do for teachers what I always wish somebody could have done for me. So as I'm going around we train teachers all summer, and then I had the glory job. I would show up in their classrooms. I was their extra hands. If they had ordered an aquarium and they didn't know how to set it up, I'd set it up for them. If they needed to do some kind of hands-on, but they forgot to bring food color, and I'd jump in my car and run to the grocery store and get food color, and bring them little treats and just really be the rah-rah person. And absolutely just one of the greatest jobs in the world. And then that grant ran out, and in the meantime, I got my doctorate and started teaching at the university. And I don't know if you guys, I would assume because y'all are both such experts, you've probably taught adjunct some, but teaching future teachers is one of the most amazing experiences, and it will keep you young. And I absolutely, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I'm still in touch with a lot of my first, we call them pre-service teachers. And then that was 30 years, kind of went by really fast. And my husband and I moved to Mississippi for his job in education. And I wrote my first book. And from that point on, I just started, speaking and writing and talking. And I have 5 sons. I didn't tell y'all that part, who still say to me, Mama, people pay you to talk. I said, yeah. I'm like, why? I said, I don't know, but they do, and I like it. And so now my husband has changed to, he teaches in Southern Oklahoma. And so we live in the very northern part of Texas. And that's where I am now. I'm still talking to teachers and writing books about teaching and talking to kids and principals and parents and whoever wants to hear it.
Awesome. So you've achieved an awful lot. You've been able to go ahead and you've overcome some adversity, in your career. Hone in on 1 or 2 of those big challenges that you've overcome, an obstacle, if you will, and how you either danced around it or crept up over the top.
The huge advantage, I guess, was starting as a teacher with no degree. And my students told me one time that one of the veteran teachers had said that I couldn't fail anybody because I didn't have a degree, so they didn't have to try in my room. And there was, it was also at a time where we were still segregated in Louisiana, and very small town. And I was in an all African American school and one of the few Caucasian teachers on staff. And that was not from the staff. The staff embraced me. The kids did. The parents did. The community wasn't as forthright. But, that all worked itself out. And we finally came into the 21st century and we finally integrated, and that all worked itself out. But being in a rural southern parish, what I noticed was, because every time I learned something new, I wanted to share it with other teachers. And it was like, no, we're going to hire a consultant to do that. I said, well, I'll get a briefcase so I can be a consultant. And there was a bit of the good old boy. You understand, like in the South, what we call a coach with back-to-back losing seasons is we call him a principal. But no, I'm just kidding, you guys. I'm kidding. It's a joke.
Ooh.
But and it was hard. It was, it was tough. And there was also this, you can't be a prophet in your own land. So we know her. We know who she is. She can't be that good. And so finally, one of the main decisions about going to Shreveport was because they're very welcoming of women in particular, and women in jobs of administration, and a lot more opportunity. Plus, when I got to Keyfield, air conditioning for the first time in 17 years. And I had a principal that was very, very progressive and supportive, and challenged me in ways I'd not been challenged before. I always thought I was a pretty great teacher, but she really, really helped me get even better. So those were really the 2 things I would say that were pretty challenging for me, and not that much. I mean, honestly, I really liked what I did so much. And back then, in olden days, there was so much parent support, and you get known in the community. And even if a kid goes home and said, Miss Pace did so and so, the kids are like, oh, I know Miss Pace, she would never do that. And it's not that way anymore for teachers. We automatically are on the defensive somewhat, and we've got parents that are very litigious, and a lot of people have chips on their shoulders about a lot of things. And I find that very unfortunate, because I was blessed with a very supportive community and parents. And when I first moved to Shreveport, that was a little bit different, because I was so used to that. And I did have some parents that came and questioned me my first year in Shreveport. And I'm like, oh, do you not know who I am? Do you not understand? And it took me a while to realize I had to earn my chops with them. Yeah. And it took a couple of years, but I really do believe that about all of us. You guys, as principals, me as your teacher, we develop a reputation, and that works for us. People like to get on social media now and call people out and talk about teachers, and they should not be doing that. But if you've got your community and people know who you are, I think that always does work in your favor.
Yeah. You know, after Chris and I had our third losing season, we both decided to leave the classroom and then move into teasing. We loved our years teaching. There's no doubt about it. But, you know, we look at ourselves as coaches instead of instructional leaders. And by doing that, we work.
That's the model right there. Yeah.
And it's really what drives us, because we have to empower. And if we empower, great things happen. And, you know, it's okay to fail. And that's okay. That's part of learning. We talk about that all the time. So reflecting back on when you were in the classroom in front of kids, talk to me about, you know, how you said you were going through the time of segregation. Tell me how you brought real life lessons into your teaching, because what an opportunity to be able to help enlighten kids to society, the real world. Give us some examples of how you did that.
Well, what was really cool is I was so young, you know, I was 20 and so naive. And I was brought up in Fort Worth, and y'all may not think of Fort Worth as, you know, cultural mecca. But I went to a huge high school. I mean, they taught 5 foreign languages in my high school. So I went to the land of plenty. Now I'm in the land of, well, every one of our students was on free lunch. And I could have been with my salary, but I didn't know to apply. Idiot. And I'm literally dealing with kids who don't have indoor plumbing. So I came at it at a point of naivety, because it wasn't just the Black culture, it was the rural metro culture. The rural is very, very different, you know, different phrases, different ways they view the family. And it was all new to me. So I wasn't judging. I would just ask, you know, my colleagues, the kids, they would say something. I'd go, what did you just say? And they would use an expression I'd never heard before. And I went, okay, so where did that come from? But they loved teaching me. And they loved introducing me to Southern food. And they loved it that I was so naive about some things that I didn't even know. Like, y'all probably don't know what a bush hog is. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like a little animal.
I've heard of roadkill.
Machinery. But there were so many things like that. And then I remember when the movie Roots came out. And so we all watched that. You know, it was a big deal. And this was really sad. I got to school, and one of my students came up and said, Miss Pace, why do you people want to treat us like that? And I was like, what? You know, we had never had a conversation like that before. We've never gone there. And the fact that all of a sudden I have a student that's putting me in this category of these disreputable people that were on Roots, it broke my heart. Mm-hmm. And so I said, you know, I didn't live then, and you guys didn't live then. And I have this big thing. If you read any of my books, it's like, what can you control? You know, take over what you can control, and what you can't control, minimize it. And I said, guys, all of that happened before I ever got here, and I don't approve of it, but I can't change it, and neither can you. So let's start talking about what we can do right now, today, to make sure that never happens again. And so we all got busy and rolled our sleeves up, you know, and got these programs going. But it was an eye opener. It really was. People say, Deb, have you seen the movie The Help? I'm like, I lived the movie The Help, and I read the book, and that's a very true book. That's the way things were at that time. So it was all of us growing together. But it was so funny, because I remember one time one of my students, Jerry, was crying, and I said, Jerry, what is wrong with you? What are you crying about? He said, those kids on the bus, they said you were white. I said, well, they don't know. But it was a whole, you know, kind of evolving of new ways to look at each other, to look at the world. But my kids, they loved me, and I loved them, and they wanted me to be like them. And I have a lot of freckles. Y'all can't see it here, but I'm covered with freckles. So they decided I was halfway there and that I was okay. But it was very much enlightening and very much a growth process for me. And so, you know, when we're talking about now the social unrest, and I talk to people who, you know, are pretty critical, I'm like, I was there. I saw it. I was offended then. I'm offended now. And, you know, they're not making this up. This was real. This is the way it was. So I think it helped me. And hopefully, you know, because I'm still really close to a lot of the kids, from Rosenwald that still write, and we're in touch and we're close. And I just, I think you have to do what you have to do where you are. And at the time, that was my only choice, and I loved it. I loved Logansport. That's one of the greatest places on earth.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Wow. It's quite an intriguing story, and it also incorporated in, a teaching moment that really kind of stuck with you.
Yes.
And it's truly influenced, a lot of your outlook. And I can just tell in the way that you're talking about that experience, how that shaped you, and it really kind of struck you in your core. So, really shifting gears, think about the classroom, think about the passion that you drive into that work. What excites you most about your position?
For it, whether it's a kid or a teacher, it's when they have that aha moment, and I get to see it when they're like, "Oh," and you're just like, "Whoa, that is so amazing! That is so cool that I got to see you move from here to here." It's just it's a gift. It is a blessing. Earlier, you guys were talking about, here's what Deb brought to education. Guys, flip that around. It is what education brought to me. And because I'm a writer, and I always tell teachers, we don't need to be alike. We're all very different. You don't need to be just like your neighbor. You need to be who you are. Okay. Well, who I am is I'm a writer. And so early on in my career, I started writing letters to my kids. It was just natural for me, especially at the end of the year. Here's what I like about you. Here's my dreams for you. Here's what I hope you'll never forget about being in this classroom. And I had no idea the kind of impact that would have. And then when I went to Shreveport, I was teaching over 200 kids a day. So that got to be a pretty big, enterprise, but I still did it. And I still hear from kids, about those letters. And I get this, you don't know how much that letter meant to me. Well, they don't know how much that letter meant to me, because when I had to sit down and frame in my mind, these are the things that I see in you that are different from other people. These are the special qualities that are attractive to you. And here's what I hope, will happen the rest of your life. After I had written that letter, even though I didn't give it to that child yet, it changed my attitude about them. And I was watching one of your former video YouTubes, and the teacher was talking about connections. Yeah, sorry, I can't talk. It's all that vodka. But they were talking about, the connections.
PG show now, Deb.
Oh, I'm sorry. Children, this place is kidding. It's just water. It's heavy water, but it's water. But the teacher was saying, and I agree, I think COVID has brought us back to the point, because our book, Deidre Stafford and I wrote, Teaching Kids to Thrive, it's all about SEL and how do you integrate it into the classroom, not as a standalone, not as an add-on, but as part of your culture, which I'm sure you two guys do in your schools all the time. Well, we were getting a lot of pushback from that. Then COVID happened, and everybody's going, you know what? We really do need to look at that. We need to explore this and understand and make those connections. So I agree with this guest that you had who said, let's take this as an opportunity to reinvent the way that we teach. And that's always been, I'm teaching future teachers, and they get all bent out of shape. And I had a son that was a teacher, and not for very long, because he got hit in his state with all of the standards and make sure that you delineate every one of your lesson plans with this, and this. And it was just he was pulling his hair out. How do I justify my differentiated instruction, and how do I rectify this with the standards? And I said, Scott, just as an old hand, here's what I would say, and it's what you guys tell your teachers. I said, you need to be building relationships. He goes, well, they told us if we don't start on the first day, we'll get behind. I said, then get behind, because those kids are always going to remember who you were, and they're going to remember how you made them feel. And everything in your room is going to get better from your relationship with kids. And, in middle school, guys, we've been saying this for how long? Ever. I mean, seriously, ever. And high school now is kind of coming on board going, so what is this cooperative learning that y'all do? What is this teaming that y'all do. And it's because it works. It's because it's real. And we really, and I did tell my undergraduates that. I mean, I gave them full permission. I said, you need to take that first week and just really get to know who your kids are. You've got to build a trust level with them. You've got to let them know it's okay to make mistakes. You know, you've got to build that growth mindset. But and to me, that's the fun part. I mean, I love my subject matter, science, but the fun part is getting to know who these kids are. And, you know, standing at the door, and when they walk in, you know, I just kind of light up. It's like, where have I been? You know, come on, we got to get started. I've been missing you.
Well, you know, the content drives us. I wrote that in my passage this week, but we all teach kids.
Exactly.
Kids, content drives us. Think about that for a second. So again, scope and sequence, connecting with standards, that's all important. There's no doubt about it, but everything is relational. So Deb, thinking about this for a second, tell me something that is a moment in your career in the teaching field that has really stayed with you. Just encapsulate something that really resonates with you that you've always taken with you. Just that moment, that captured moment.
Well, it was actually after the fact. So this would be for veteran teachers, you know, but I got that phone call. I was teaching at Louisiana Tech, and a young man named Jeff Caskey, and he's given me permission to use his name, called me to tell me that the letter that I wrote to him when he was in the 6th grade literally saved his life. And he told a story about he'd been abducted by a child molester and held, and pretty nasty story. And it affected him a lot emotionally. He kind of lost it, kind of broke with reality. Finally ended up in a high school. It caused all kinds of problems, but nobody knew what his history was. And they kicked him out, and he said he went home, and his dad told him to either get some help or get out. And he was packing his bag to leave. And he said, I put a letter that you wrote to me. And he said, and you talked about all those things you valued in me, and I wanted me back. And all the dreams that you had for me, and I wanted my dreams back. And he said, Miss Pace, you probably don't remember this, but you said I didn't have a right to leave this earth till I gave something back. And he said, for the first time since the event, I cried, and I couldn't stop. And my parents came in, and they read your letter, and they cried. We went to a counselor, and he really liked your letter. And he told me that I should probably keep that pretty close. Because it meant a lot, and that life had a way of getting in the way of your plans. So when something happens, maybe I should just remember what we talked about your letter. And he said, that's what I did. He said, I had it when I got my GED, and I had it when I went to take my military SFAB. And he said, my score was so high, I got tapped for a special peacekeeping mission. I've been all over the world. He said, I've done incredible things, and they've not all been easy. And sometimes I did lose my way, but I'd always read your letter, and I'd always tell myself, you know, get back up, start again. And he said, I promised myself then, if I ever got back to the United States, I would call you and tell you something about that letter. And he said, the letter you took the time to write me when you were my teacher literally saved my life. And I'm just like, ah. And so I go into my middle school methods class right after that, and I wasn't wearing my Mary Kay waterproof mascara, so I got black chunks running down my face. And they were like, Dr. Silver, are you okay? Yeah. And they said, what's wrong? I said, you know what? Nothing's wrong. And I had all of this stuff that had come from the State Department about how to align curriculum with the state strategic plan that I was supposed to present that day, and I just shoved that aside. And I walked to the front of the room, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to the greatest profession on the face of this earth. I would like to welcome you to teaching. And I just had a phone call from a student, and I'd like to tell you about that call. And I told them, and they cried, and I cried. And it was probably the best lesson I ever taught as a college professor. So yeah, that.
Wow. Powerful. That's powerful. So you've had the chance to stand up in front of young teachers or prospective teachers and obviously give them some great advice. If you were to sit down and talk with a mentee today as their first day, what's the advice that you're giving them, Deb?
I would tell them, first of all, figure out who you are and what you want to be as a teacher. because you're going to get so much information and so much pressure from other people, and understanding it's a growth process and a journey, and it's okay to make mistakes, like you guys said, fall down, get up. But you've got to figure out what's important to you, what matters, and then you've got to figure out what you can control. You honestly, with your own volition, can control. And where those overlap, that's where you put your energy. Yep. The rest of that stuff, just push it aside. And then again, like I told my son Scott, you start with relationships. But, all of us in middle school education say that, and it's true.
I'm going to take this one step further, and my mind is back on your authentic feedback. And what I mean by authentic feedback, forget about the lesson that was taught. You took the time to dig into their soul and give them your view from your front mirror, which to me, to a middle school kid, is probably the most powerful gift you could give to a middle school child as they're navigating 10 through 14, because it's their teacher, and connecting with them is everything. You're 100% spot on when you say that. So take 2 steps back right now and tell me about somebody in your career that had the biggest influence on you. So stepping back and just saying, who inspired you to become who you are today? I'm probably sure there are a few of them, but just give me that one person that you think had the biggest.
It's probably going to be different from anything you've ever heard before. Mm-hmm. It was a teacher that I couldn't stand. And it happened in the 1st grade. And we didn't have kindergarten when I started school. So this was my 1st grade teacher. And I'm a kid who I have 3 brothers. And, my family was pro school, and the teacher was always right, and da-da-da-da-da. And I was so excited about going to school. And I want to call her out, Mrs. Castleberry. I hope you're still alive. But she was horrible. And I don't know why, but she hated me in particular. And it was obvious. And I couldn't do anything right. And I'd cry. And my parents would never allow us to say anything negative about our teachers, because I had 2 little brothers, that were coming behind me. And they might have those teachers. But I've never felt so lost and so disappointed in my entire life. And I used to think, and I didn't have any idea I wanted to be a teacher at that time, but my thought was, if I were a teacher, I would never be like this. And then, of course, I was blessed to have some great teachers on up, and never anyone as bad as Miss Castleberry. But I do a little comedy routine where I've got this curmudgeon old teacher. Her name is Mrs. Cole Smoker, but she's really Miss Castleberry. And, I do the things that these people do, but I have never forgotten what it felt like to be that kid who did not feel welcome in that classroom, who didn't even understand why. I mean, I'm a pretty good student. I'm not a good reader, and that's probably what the problem was, but it felt horrible. And I haven't forgotten it. I still remember being in the 1st grade and thinking, I don't know what I did. I don't know why I'm not worthy. And so I've carried that with me. And I guess, unlike most people, I could point to some great teachers, because I have certainly been blessed with some. But that experience, I think, really did change everything about the way I teach.
Deb, everything that we experience really shapes us in profound ways. And, I'm glad you shared that story, because it's a great anchor point about the importance of relationships, treating everybody with gold as if they're gold, and also playing to their strengths. I worked at a private school called Eagle Hill School, and it was a specialized school for learning disabled children. In parentheses was the DIS, and we focused on the ability. And the DIS was not in any way, shape, or form what we were talking about. Our job was to find a way to gain entry into those students' minds, their hearts, and their abilities, and move them forward. And the way that you shared your story really brings back a good anchor point into my values, my beliefs. But that's one of the reasons why you're a middle Marvel, Deb, because you're focusing on moving forward, taking on the mountain, taking on the challenge, and making something great for others. And that's what this is all about. But we're out of time, Deb. So do you have any tips on how Dean and I can get our hands on some of these books? Where are they available? And anybody out there in Unlock the Middle Land can find them.
All right, I'm going to tell you this. Don't buy Fall Down 7 Times yet. I've just revised it, and it is in press right now. So you're going to want the 2nd edition.
I want that one.
It's a lot better. What I did was, and this one included a thing on technology, because I'm really concerned about all the screen time and what we're doing to kids with screens. So wait on that one. But the other four, there you can go to my website, debbiesilver.com. You can go to Amazon, Books A Million, AMLE, Association of Middle-Level Educators, their bookstore, but you can find them anywhere. Yeah, just
Awesome.
go get them.
That's awesome to know. Thank you so much, Deb. Well, hey, everybody out there in Unlock the Middle Land. It's Chris on behalf of Dean and Middle Marvel number 21, Dr. Debbie Silver, saying have a great night, be better, work hard to get smart all the time, celebrate our veterans tomorrow on Veterans Day, make it a great week, and tune in on Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. with Dean and I in Navigating Leadership, where we host other principals and educational leaders from all around to talk about real issues that we're going through. Be well, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, guys.